Today is February 26th, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Greg Harper in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Rockford, Illinois, Swedish American Hospital.
Where?
Rockford, Illinois.
Rockford, Illinois. And when's your birthday?
December 3rd, 1948.
1948. Who was your father?
John Harper.
John Harper. And your mother?
Dorothy Harper.
What was her maiden name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Did you go through school in Rockford?
I went through 7th grade, into 7th grade in Rockford, Illinois, and then we moved to Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Okay. Why'd the family move to Fond du Lac?
Dad was always trying to do better, always trying to get better. Dad did not have a high school diploma. He was one of those kids in the early years. His mother, my grandmother, loved children and hated men. So she had 3 husbands, and they all left alcoholics. So my dad's real name and our real name, historical name, is Belshaw on Dad's side. So Dad had to quit school to support his mom and his brother and sister. So he didn't get his GED until, I think the late 1968 or 1970, somewhere in there. Just when he got actually ended up with his GED.
Where'd you go to high school? Fond du Lac?
No, we moved from Fond du Lac after a couple years, and we moved to Bettendorf, Iowa, which is the kind of the Quad City area. Anybody that knows where the Quad City, that's Rock Island, Moline, Davenport, and all of that. Quite an industrial area in its day. Yeah.
You graduated what year?
1967.
1967. Who's your favorite teacher?
The one that I always had a heartthrob for was actually Mrs. Winky in Rockford, second grade, and that's one of the few names that I can remember. She let me do a lot of drawing and that. Of course, I guess that's normal for a second grader, but I was a horrible reader and that, but I seemed to be able to draw. And Miss Winky, I just remember. Yeah. And then she went off and married an Air Force guy, so I didn't like Air Force after that.
Hold on. Yeah. You played sports in high school?
I played football 1 year.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do for recreation in high school?
Mostly worked to support a car. My dad was a real advocate of working, and in order for my brothers and I to have a car, my dad brought home our first car. He was always proud of bringing home the boys the first car. However, they all came to the house behind a tow truck. So we got the privilege of repairing a vehicle, and then when we earned enough money to buy insurance and everything necessary to make it functional, then he allowed us to drive it. So
what car did you have?
I had a 1948 two-door sedan. I'd love to have it back.
48. Was it Ford?
It was four-door. Yeah, Ford two-door sedan. So it was had that flat head. It had a huge back seat back there. It was just enormous, which was great.
Yeah. What'd you do after high school?
My dad and one of the local policemen, which lived right behind us in Bettendorf, and the local judge and the vice principal of the high school decided I should get a little more discipline training. And so between my junior and senior year of high school, my dad took me down to the Navy Reserve Training Center, and he allowed me to sign up into the Navy at 17, and I was in the reserves all through senior year in high school. Did boot camp at Great Lakes at that time, and which turned out to be one of the best things ever happened to me. My dad was sure I was going to be in jail shortly. The police officer behind us was a good guy, and he was pretty sure of that also. And
They
so
thought you needed more
a
discipline.
little more direction.
Why did you need more discipline?
Well, I didn't follow rules real well, and that's why my dad was in the Navy and my brother was in the Navy. So he told me I could join anything I wanted, but at that time I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I love flying. I helped a neighbor guy right across the street, a one-armed guy, rebuild a Piper Tripacer, and it was a fabric-covered airplane, so it took a lot of work, and I spent a lot of time with him out there, and he rebuilt a 1956 or 57 MGA, and every nut and bolt, and that's the first time I had wrenches that I didn't lose, because I seemed to lose most of my dad's for some reason. But he let me help him with that, and with one arm, there's a lot he couldn't do, so he was right across the street. So I spent a lot of time working on that as the first automobile and then the first airplane, and I flew with him a couple times, one arm and all, in an uncertified airplane. He hadn't got it signed off by the FAA yet, and I didn't know any better at the time. We went flying to a couple other county airports and would get hamburgers or something to drink, and then he'd fly back to Davenport. Yeah.
Tell me about boot camp.
Boot camp is where I started to understand discipline at the level my dad always was trying to explain it to me. At Great Lakes, we were in the last class of Camp Moffett. Camp Moffett was built in World War II, and my dad was in the first class of Camp Moffett, old wooden barracks, and my older brother went through Camp Moffett in those same wooden barracks, and I was the last boot camp class to go through those wooden barracks. After I graduated through boot camp, they bulldozed and built new barracks. But as I understand now, I don't think Great Lakes is a boot camp anymore. But I did what everybody else does at boot camp. It was in Chicago, snow clear up to your nose, and they didn't use snow removal equipment. They used boots so you get in a big line and you would shovel everything, streets, sidewalks, the parade ground for marching, and you shoveled by hand. And I remember doing that a lot.
So what type of training did you have?
I didn't have any specific training in boot camp. By that time, I was just finding out that you could begin to, what in the Navy we called, you could strike for something. You could be a striker, or anything, something striker, radioman striker, signalman, all that. And I was just kind of figuring out that the world wasn't waiting with bated breath for Greg Harper. I was just another one of the same guys that was right there, and they shaved my hair was the only hair that didn't hit the floor, and the barber noted that when I went through the line in the 60s, 1966. So many of those guys had long hair, and they loved shaving them because you get the number one cut on the, and it was one side there. Well, my dad had been doing that all of our lives, so I didn't know anything different. So he asked me if my dad was a military man. I said, well, he was in the Navy in World War II. He said it shows. So we didn't actually strike for anything in boot camp. It's when you got your first assignment is the first time that you could begin to strike for something. Now, the fact that I went in so early and I think they still have it, but I'm not sure. It's called a 127-day delay program. That then it meant from the day you graduate from high school, you have it's 120. I'm saying 120-day delay program. You have 120 days, and you have orders to be somewhere. And I was that. But see, because I had gone in so early, I was in E3 already. Now, I didn't know any better. I'm a dumb kid who thinks he knows everything there is to know, but I'm learning rules pretty good. By the time I followed my orders in September 1967, and I was supposed to pick up my first duty assignment, which was a ship, USS Thomaston LSD-28, out of Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay. So I had a train ride at that time, using trains, had an old train ride to Chicago, a ride up to Great Lakes. I got off there. Glenview, just north of Great Lake, which is a naval air station. And I flew out to San Francisco, and then I got their bus, military transport bus, to Treasure Island, which now is owned by the city. The government has given all that back to the city. And the USS Thomaston wasn't in port. So so I was there for 3 or 4 days just doing nothing. They just said, "Don't get in trouble, sailor." So I'm an Iowa boy. I don't have a clue. So I did some dumb things there, waiting to hear where I'm supposed to go next. And they finally found it. It was in dry dock in Long Beach Pier, down in Long Beach, California. They were doing some changes on it. But while I was in San Francisco, I rented some little scooters. You could rent scooters there. And I'm in uniform, dress uniform, and I'm just having a ball. It didn't cost hardly anything. I ride the tram up and down several times, Fisherman's Wharf and all that. And here's this little smart aleck Iowa boy thinking, man, I've got it made. I'm in the big city. Wow, I've always wanted to be here, and there's all that noise. And at that time, there was chanters on street corners and ringing bells and just crazy stuff. And I was told that there was less than fully dressed people on the North Shore, just outside. And so I said, I've got to go see this for myself. So I took the scooter up and over the mountaintop and the entrance to the bay there. And when I got up there, it was very cold, and there was nobody out there. And I almost got a ticket because I was riding the scooter down the sand. I didn't know any better. The police got me. So then on the way back, I went back and up over the mountain because there's a really tall hill there right inside the bay on the south side of Golden Gate, and that city's either up or down at that point. And I drove, and I found this park, and I drove through this park on my little white Honda scooter in my full dress uniform, and there's people everywhere. And as I'm riding through, just looking along, and I could see people starting to come towards me, and I thought they were waving, so I was waving back, and still driving through the park, and it's a really big park. And the further I went, the more people were coming out, and I thought, well, this is kind of cool. All these people are waving, must be because I'm in uniform. And, well, it didn't take much longer after that they started getting closer, and they weren't waving. They were using a lot of hand gestures, and I could start to hear some of them yell, and it had a lot to do with the uniform in 1967. And I learned later that as I sped out of there, before they finally engulfed me at the other far corner of the park, I learned later that I was going through Haight-Ashbury Park, which was completely full of hippies and anti-war people, and I'm surprised I didn't die right there. So I didn't go off the base after that. That had me frightened enough that maybe this Iowa kid wasn't so smart and I just didn't know where not to go.
So how long were you on Treasure Island?
I was on Treasure Island about 4 days before I got orders to catch California flight down to LA, LAX. Then they taxied me over to Long Beach Harbor, where the Queen, let's see, what's the
Queen Mary.
Queen Mary is tied up on the other side now, but the Navy had most of that harbor, and they used it for dry dock stuff. And I picked that up in Long Beach. When we were in Long Beach,
You were aboard the USS
Thomaston.
Thomaston.
Yeah, LSD 28. Well, that's an interesting name in the 60s, but that's for landing ship dock.
Yes.
And we hold troops in the wing walls, and the belly of it was where we had all the amphibious equipment to put the men aboard, ashore.
When did you go aboard the Thomaston? Do you recall the date?
I don't recall the date, but it would have been in late September
Of 60...
of '67.
67, okay.
Because I had those orders to be out in Treasure Island in early September '67 for my orders, and I was only there about 4 days. And then they flew me down, and I picked up. I went aboard, and that was so impressive to me. I mean, ended up being far bigger ships, but the USS Thomaston was 510 feet long.
How long?
510 feet long, and from the wing walls, which is the main deck, to what they call the boot topping, which is the painted line, the water line aboard a boat. Every boat's got one, or most of them. Well, they call that the boot topping in the Navy, and that was 47 feet. Well, then from there to the flying bridge, which is where I ended up as a signalman, that's 110 feet from the flying bridge to the boot topping. And of course, the first thing you do to get on board, you're non-striker. I am an E3, so I didn't know anything. I was just right out of Iowa. I'm way out of my league. And the first person they introduce you to is the bosun mates. Now, these are the guys that have crooked fingers because they coffee cups everywhere. A bosun mate goes to the coffee cup.
Yes.
And I learned what that crooked finger was. And so you get assigned a deck crew when you come aboard as knowing nothing. You go to a deck crew. So I went to the deck crew. One of the divisions. They always have they always have at least 2 divisions. So there's one aboard ship at all times, and the other one would take liberty or whatever. So I was assigned to one of those. I don't remember which one. And I realized right away that I learned what striking was, and I learned that I did not want to be a bosun mate. That was the chipping, the paint, the endless, and they were kind of like the road gang of today. They were tight. They're a first line in the Navy. They're the first line officers and aboard any naval vessel to take over command. It's the bosun mates. The bosun mates, if everybody else is gone, the senior bosun mate is now the captain of whatever is left. And it's always been called a line rate. Well, the next one to that was signalman, then quartermaster. So when I found out that there was an opening on the signal bridge, I asked them, where was that at? And they said, well, it's up there on top. Well, I like that. If this thing's going down, that's the last one in the water. So I like that. And there again, I had problems reading, so everything I did, and everything comes to you in a Navy manual. If you want to go up to the next rate, pay grade, whatever, you have to complete this course book. And they had course books for absolutely everything. So I asked if I could strike for signalman. And then you ended up with I already had three stripes as an E3. Then once you're a legal striker, then you get a little patch designating whether it's a gunner's mate or a bosun mate, and mine was cross flags. So I changed divisions in the ship, aboard ship, so I changed places in the ship, my berth, and I got to be right on the bottom. That was interesting. They're 4 high, and they're 18 inches apart. So, and I'm about 6 inches off the deck. So for me to get into my berth, which is on the bottom, I virtually had to lay down and roll into my space. And I learned that the best duty aboard, or the best shift to have, or watch in the Navy, was the mid-shift, midnight. And I wasn't a night person, although I got in plenty of trouble at home late at night. But I learned out at sea, when we finally went to sea, that I just love the ocean. I love being at sea, still do. Still love the ocean, love the water. And but up there on top, the stacks come through the flying bridge. Either come through it, or they're right next to it on all the ships, other than maybe carriers. And you're wrapped around that. Your signal bags for all your flags, signal stuff. And you're up there when the weather's good. The flying bridge is where the officers run the ship. So your watches, they're out on little wing walls that hang over the side of the ship. So when you look down, it's called duck plating. So when they look down in their watch station, you see 110 feet down, and you see the ocean. And these watches are out over the side, and that's so they can watch fore and aft on the ship. And they're up there. Quartermaster's up there. All the radio and what's called IC, radar, radio, all of that's one deck below you. So you constantly, you're the runner a lot of times for the officers. You also get the donuts and the snacks and the pastries for them during the mid-watch. That's part of the rules. And in the signal shack, you were to maintain the coffee pots. Endless coffee. There's no end to coffee. And the officers had their name, and you had the cups. Your job was to keep all the secret manuals in safes there on that, and keep the officers' mugs clean at all times. And the old man, the captain of the ship, had his chair. There's only one chair on the flying bridge, and there's only one chair in the deck below, which is where they run it when it's foul weather. And that's the old man's chair, the captain of the ship. And he would often come up in the middle of the night in his T-shirt and sandals and prop his feet up and just sit up there and smoke a cigar, and you'd bring him fresh coffee because he wanted fresh coffee, and he'd smoke a cigar. But he was really a good guy. And
Who was captain?
I want to say Stig, I want to say he was a little short guy. He came aboard not very long. The original captain that was there, they shipped him off to someplace, and we were out at sea. So we line ferried the old captain off in a bosun's chair. That's between the ships moving. And we brought on the new captain. And I don't know why we had a helicopter deck. You know, the whole back third of that ship is a huge helicopter platform, which is one of the things we had. So why we went through that exercise, I don't know. I don't know if that's initiation for those guys, but the new old man came aboard. He was a little short Airedale captain. He came off of an aircraft carrier or something. So I don't know if he was demoted or promoted. I don't know, but he was a full captain. I liked him a lot. He's a good guy. I could have gotten in trouble a few times on there that didn't go that way because of him.
Now, being signal, did you have to go through the courses to learn semaphores?
I did.
Lights?
In fact, semaphore is good. Yeah, and then in bars, the signalman always talked in short arm. It's what they call short arm. So we would communicate in the semaphore, what they called short arm, and signalman, of course, knew that and always did that. We've got a few signalman retirees here in Bartlesville. Good guys. One of them's passed away now. I'm a retired chief signalman. Yeah, you learned your semaphore, but before that, you have to learn code. And after that, because you're on the light right away, and you practice during the day. You're on them flashing lights, shooting to the bulkhead or shooting someplace. You don't even have to turn the light on because you're learning what they call the fist. You have to learn the fist, how to do your dots and dashes.
That's Morse code?
That's Morse code.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had 4 signal lights, and they were arc lights. there is, I don't know what they are today, but at that time they were actually arc elements in there like a welder, because that light showed to the horizon, and over the horizon, it's hard to imagine. The horizon in the Navy, you never forget it. If your toes are in the water at the ocean, the horizon is 14.7 or 14.8 miles. That's the line you're looking at. And then, of course, as you go vertical, of course, you exponentially move that line. So the furthest I ever communicated with another ship, and the signalman's responsibility is to hail every ship you see. And to hail them is to call them. That means to call with the light. And then by international law, they're to respond with their 4-letter designator by law. And then you log it, or you look them up if you have questions. We have a logbook of all registered ships. Of course, now it's all on computer.
Yeah.
So it's nothing like when I was, that arc light I'm sure is long since gone. But the furthest I ever got was a ship that was right at 50 miles away. And everybody on the flying bridge, and this was at night, and at night you use your red filters, big infrared filters lock on the hood. And so when you're sending that the red light. And the red light has something about the optics. You can see it much further. But light tends to follow the curvature. It's hard to imagine. The curvature of the Earth tends to. Well, I didn't believe that until we weren't out to sea too long that I began to see that, yeah, it does, and that was really cool. I really got into that. And I saw what, and you're on watch too. You have your binoculars on top of your signal lights, and you're looking at on one horizon or another looking for a ship. And when you see the ship, you give a kilo, and that's da-da-da. And that's what that means in international waters is invitation to transmit. So if you start flashing da-da-da, da-da-da, you just keep flashing that until they give you a steady light back, and that says they see you, and then they start transmitting their 4-letter code to you. But the radar and radio guys always used to give us a hard time because they said we knew before, you guys ever know. And most of the time that's true because they certainly can get it further out in the radar much. But that one night the radar did not see that ship. And they came up because we would communicate between each other. And I said, I've got a target, and here's his call sign. And they said, where's it at? And I gave them the degrees because you have the degrees on the azimuth. I said, so many degrees, and I said, it's way on the right. I saw their mast light, so I started hitting. Well, then they finally responded back, and I said, yeah, here's his call sign. And I said, it's so many degrees from our port bow or whatever it was, and they finally came up because they said there ain't no way because we don't see it on our scope. So I don't know about your scope, but between the radarman and radioman and signalman, there was always frustration there, but we usually drank a lot together. So, and I said, I got it. And the radarman and a radioman both came up at night, and they wanted to see this ship that they did not have contact with. And I hailed him again, and he answered back and said, we don't believe that. So they went back down and checked, and they reset. But they never did see that ship for whatever reason, because they could certainly see beyond 50 miles. Yeah. But they didn't see that ship. So it might have been beyond 50 miles. I don't remember why we used 50 miles, but radar didn't pick it up, and I don't know if they had it set at 50 miles or something. But however far it was, I was hitting it. But I loved the mid-watch. It was calm, quiet. You could hear the turbines of the ship going, and you watch there's nothing cooler to me at sea to watch the phosphorus in the water behind your ship in total blackness, total dark. And all you have is the stars. Of course, if you have a full moon, it's different altogether. But when they taught me, where's the horizon at night? Pitch black, where's the horizon? I said, man, I don't know, how can you see the horizon? Well, it really isn't rocket science. You see, where's the stars? I said, well, man, stars are all over. So where do they stop? And sure enough, once you think about it, the stars go down, and all of a sudden, all of a sudden there's this flat line, just absolute darkness from there down. So that's the horizon. So I worked most mid-watches.
Now, where'd the ship go?
The ship went from Long Beach down to Camp Pendleton, right in the middle of, this is the fall of 1967, and they wanted nothing but bodies over in Vietnam. They were getting slaughtered over there. We were really getting hammered over there. We had those crappy early version M16s, which I never took. I never took one of those when I ended up going with it. Especially in the Marines were just, I hated that. And we were loading up. We loaded up. I don't know however many Marines we could load aboard the ship, and some of their amphibious craft, and some tanks and jeeps and stuff in the well deck. And we went right straight to Vietnam from there. And when we got over there, we got into Da Nang Harbor, right into Da Nang Harbor. There was a flotilla of us, and I don't know why, just because I'm old, I don't remember if we were in the Alpha group or the Bravo group. There was another group just like us, oilers, a couple destroyers called them tin cans, LPH, and LPH is a helicopter aircraft carrier. You know, it's a little baby aircraft carrier, but it's for helicopters, and an LSD like ours. And whatever, we hit there, and that other group was on station, and we were going to relieve it, so they left and typically go to the Philippines or Okinawa. But we got into Da Nang. We got at Da Nang Harbor in February 1968. Of course, for anybody that's been there and knows February 1968, they know exactly. Well, that was our welcoming committee, and therefore we couldn't get into the harbor because it was too live. It was too active. Because if you've ever been in Da Nang Harbor, it's got a real narrow. It's a deep water, but it's real narrow entrance. So we went north up along the coast, past Hue, and we went up to just short of the Song Qua Viet, which is, of course, the DMZ, the Qua Viet River. Song simply is Vietnamese for river, so Song Qua Viet is the Qua Viet River. And we offloaded the Marines at what they call Sutter's Beach. It wasn't a town. It was a military group, military camp, and they called it Sutter's Wonders. Captain Sutter was the one that was over all of that, and they always called it Sutter's Beach. And all we ever heard from him is he loved George Patton, and he carried a gun like George Patton. He didn't have a dog like George, but so we offloaded all the Marines there. And of course, you've been up in I Corps one time, that that first 15 clicks is sandy, rolly, hilly, and before you hit the mountains, and then they go up. So we were stationed, and we just did big long ellipticals during our run, and we would continue to haul supplies out of Da Nang and up and down and drop them and give them to. We had beach landings, and we would supply them with whoever needed them.
What type of supplies?
Well, ammo, food, water.
Okay.
Yeah, anything. We the worst part about it was we would haul bodies back where they couldn't get helicopters in and out of. If they get them to the shore, we'd go in and pick them up. And
could the LSD actually go up to the shore?
well, LSD did not. LSTs could.
Okay.
The LSTs were such rolling bobbers. Oh my God, they were so flat. They took 3 feet of water in the bow when they're all ballasted up. And they took about 8 feet of water in the stern, which makes it sound like a lake boat, but out at sea, that thing would almost capsize both directions, in every direction. It would just, oh my golly, to ride. And there was a lot of LSTs over. A lot of them come up the river with us. Some of the pictures I've got shows LSTs. I've got pictures of one that took a rocket right in the side, right at the water line, when it came through a place called Rocket Alley. We had different names for different bad places: Rocket Alley, Sniper's Point, Sniper's Island, the Bottleneck. We had names for all of those. But up north, yeah, we would, whoever, if they put a call in for, and if we were close enough, we would give them a little arm support, a little air, all we had was 5-inch cannons. We didn't have much. The destroyers would be, they never got too close, except an Aussie destroyer did. He came in too close, and they put a rocket into the side of him, killed several Aussie sailors on the Aussie tin can while we were running there. But the destroyers would be a little further out, and they had 8-inch guns. Of course, now they've got much larger ones than that. So they'd lob stuff in if they called for support and they couldn't get aerial support fast enough, because you guys had so much crap going on in that low ground. So
How did you get your supplies ashore?
we took them on a Mike 8s, Mike 6s.
Okay.
Just ran them ashore.
Okay.
Yeah. Now at Sutter's Wonders, they built a little case on a little quickie causeway. It's a floating causeway. It's not one you really want to walk out on, but you could drive a Jeep out on it if you were just really drunk or crazy, because it was floating. I mean, it wasn't tied to anything, so it'd drift back and forth and go up and down. We'd get in there and catch one on a certain wave. You'd watch the waves, and then you'd get alongside, tie off, and then you rode it with the causeway, with that thing. And then the Marines would come out and they would haul stuff ashore. But if we didn't have one of those at all, we'd put the Mike 8s, Mike 6s, LCBPs, and we'd put them right on the beach and drop the bow. And that's how we offloaded a lot of the. If we had tanks and Jeeps and things that we had to put down, yeah, we would do that. And we could do that. It was just what we practiced for. So I was part of the Gator Navy. That's what it was called. I have a big patch, but I don't have a picture of that either.
The Gator Navy?
The Gator Navy, yeah, it's a big patch. The Gator Navy is just for amphibians.
Yeah.
It's for the amphibians, and they call it the Gator Navy. So
I'd like to ask, whenever you first had loaded the Marines
Uh-huh.
and heading toward Vietnam,
Uh-huh.
what were you thinking?
I wasn't smart enough. I hadn't been out of Iowa that long. I'd only known what I heard and read up to that time. And I'm thinking, man, and I went in the Navy because I didn't want to go to Vietnam. And I wanted to be a helicopter pilot because I love flying. Well, I learned later that was really a stupid idea. But at any rate, so when we picked up the Marines, at that time I just felt it was a lot like a John Wayne movie. I'm aboard ship, I'm pretty safe. I'm up on the signal bridge now, chipping paint and painting it. But I'm up on top, so I get to watch all that. I get to watch all the activity. I get to watch the landing craft do their thing. I watch them go in. So I get to see all of that, and I'm signaling the boats, and the signalmen on the boats are signaling back, and so we're giving them commands with either flashing light or flags. You run up flags for certain things, because they're out there in big ovals. They don't do anything. They go out as the landing craft go out. They run ovals, and they call them different waves. And at certain times, the old man gives you orders to hoist the flag, and that wave heads to the beach. So it heads in, and they spread out. And that next wave just keeps running big ovals until it's either ready to come alongside and pick stuff up, or it's ready to go to the beach. Yeah. So we practiced that. So we knew exactly. And at that time, nothing, when we picked them up, I didn't have any realistic thoughts at all about it. I wasn't getting shot at. It's kind of a nice boat ride. The boat had just, the ship, they'd kill me for saying boat. The ship boats would carry on the ships. The ship had been brought up to date. So it had everything pretty new. The paint was really pretty good. They redid most of it in dry dock. So the idea, we pick up all these guys wearing green. It was fresh for them too. They got their first boat ride. It probably wasn't their first one, but maybe it was. And we loaded them up, and they they disembarked their boats up cargo nets, just like the old World War II movies. You know, you say, well, how come they just didn't run them up inside, you know, the well deck? I said, that isn't the way they do it. And they're full packed, and up the side just like the movies. And I'd get to go over to the side of the ship, and I'm 110 feet off the water, and I'm watching those waves. And I've been in the boats alongside, and I'm telling you, if you think if that looks fine from up above the signalman, yeah, you are. But you get down in that boat, you know, that's 38 feet long, that old Higgins boat, and it's riding just an easy swell, not even breaking water. And all of a sudden, you're looking at the underside of that ship as it's going up and coming back down. And it isn't so cute down there, because the last thing you want to do is get drawn in underneath that puppy as it's coming back down. So I didn't have any honest expectations.
How do you feed all those Marines on the ship going over?
Well, Navy's got that pretty down. The Navy on transport vessels, they're pretty heavy in the cook department, and the mess decks are designed to where there's an in and an out, and there's a time schedule for the crew, and there's a time schedule for who you're hauling. In this case, it was all Marines, and they're pretty well under orders. They've got their orders. They can be on deck all they want to, but they would do up on the helicopter deck. They would all do calisthenics, and they would stay in shape, and they'd go through their weapons, and they'd do all that all the way over. But when it came time for meals, we let them eat at a more consistent time, breakfast kind of time. I don't remember what that was now. I would eat, usually I was already full by the time my watch was over, because I had eaten since 3 or 4 in the morning with the officers up there on the flying bridge. But they would come in one hallway or one passageway in, and it's all metal trays, and those Navy guys are serving them metal trays, and they work down. They fill the whole mess deck, which is really pretty good size, and they've got so long to eat, and they're out, and they'll move however many there are. They'll move through, and you get out, and you don't go out the indoor twice. You're not going to make it, because they had their own MPs, and they policed their own group. So they did a pretty good job. We didn't have any problem with the guys over. Several of them got sick, seasick, because even though our ship is bigger, it still had a flat stern. It had a pointed bow, so it was deeper in the bow, which is why we couldn't go to the shore. But the stern was relatively flat. It's called chines, the chine of the hull of the ship. Boats that we have around here have soft chine or hard chine. So there was a chine underneath there, but when they lowered that thing and they ballasted down in the water, we could pick up 3 feet or 40 feet of water and fill, because the well deck went almost all the way to the bow. There was only one LSD ever sunk in history, and that was during World War II. It took 16 torpedoes to sink it, because everything under the waterline is an airtight passageway, so it can take on water and blow water out like a submarine. So it took 16 torpedoes to sink that. And it was off of England that they sunk it. So, but I didn't have much expectation. And when you ask me that now, it makes me feel even worse. But it's so stupid.
How long are you on the Thomaston?
I was on the Thomaston for about 6 months, which really wasn't all that long. I was long enough to be considered part of the crew. You're part of the crew after 30 days. And
what's your most vivid memory of the Thomaston?
Being on top. Most of my pictures was being on the flying bridge, meeting the officers. You don't have a higher status of any kind, but you communicate with more the officers as they rotate through the officer of the deck. And so you have a little more intimate contact with those guys. We were constantly polishing the brass, learning the signal flags. I had 2 huge signal flags, bags, aboard ship, and they're probably 6 or 7 feet long and almost 4 feet deep, and every one has rows of flags. Because if you think about it, communicating, not only is there that multiple alphabet in there by flag, there's also multiple command codes by flags. So, and you have a lot of international flags that you have to keep up and maintain when you go into their ports. You give them a courtesy flag for whatever if you go into a foreign port. So I enjoyed it. When we ever got rough water, rough seas, I'd roll out of my rack and I'd go to the flying bridge.
The ship ever fired on?
No, not the Thomaston.
Okay.
Not Thomas. A couple of the others were actually fired on. Our old man, today they could put rockets out where we were, but we would try to stay out about 5 miles offshore, which is not, it's a spit in the water, but their rockets really wouldn't, at the time, what they had available in South Vietnam, they didn't have the power to shoot them out there. One got that Aussie ship, he was in real close, and he was given actually fire support for some Army or Marine, I think it must have been Marines, because generally the Marines were north until Quezon and some of those really bad battles. Then the Army had to come up and help them out because they were just losing Marines like, gee, it was horrible.
So from the Thomaston, where'd you go?
So they sent me back to Camp Pendleton for, they call it specialized training. Apparently, and I was already going to be reassigned to South Vietnam, and so it wasn't the counterinsurgency training that the guys would know that there's a special school for counterinsurgency. That's a different training altogether. I was sent back to Camp Pendleton for specialized training on how to blow things up.
Okay.
And certain weapons, I learned certain weapons back there, how to take them apart in the dark, put them back together, how to fire them, and how to do a lot of really nasty things with bamboo sticks and a battery, which the Viet Cong taught us really, really well, really, really well. So I learned I went to the schools on that, how to recognize them and how to use them ourselves, how to do it back. And then they sent me to, I got to go R&R coming back, so I stopped in Hawaii on the way back. A lot of the guys went to Taiwan and Thailand. Man, all I ever heard is a lot of horror stories out of that. So I was learning just enough out of Iowa to figure that probably wasn't a great idea. So I came back to Hawaii and I had my R&R in Hawaii, and then went to Pendleton when I came back. Then when I got back, I got another R&R, but not till a little later, and I went to Australia, and I really enjoyed that. So, but I went down, I flew right into Tungsten Nut Air Base in Saigon, and that would have been, by that time it was about September, October, pretty close to there.
60,
the fall of 68.
Okay.
And then what I was assigned was NSA Saigon, is what the assignment was called. But everything, just like NSA Da Nang, that didn't mean you were in Da Nang. It just meant that's the corps that you were assigned out of for who knows where. And I was assigned to NSA Saigon, which helicoptered me down to Dong Tam to pick up. No, not that time. They helicoptered me down to Vung Tau.
Vung Tau.
And I picked up the USS Mark there, which is, it's about an 80-foot long little cargo hauler. All Navy, chief petty officers, the captain,
Now, what designation, was it like an LST, LSD?
I can't remember. It has a USS Mark has a designation, but it's kind of a light yard. They call them yard supply ships that would move parts or stuff in and out. It certainly wasn't designed for heavy seas. But it would do it. And the reason they sent me there is because they didn't know exactly where my flotilla group was at. Typically we had 2 or 3 flotilla groups up the Song Mekong River. Yes. And they were clusters of what I called the target, and its supporting boats that we supported, the Riverons, and there was kind of 3 groups up all the way to the Cambodia border. And then those Riverons operated out of that. We did repairs. We had machinists on board. We could do some minor repairs. Dong Tam actually had they had an inner harbor there, and that actually had some place where you could drag some of the boats out and do little bigger repairs at Dong Tam. But I went to Vong Tau because USS Mark was there, and it was getting ready to deploy upriver, take some supplies. It really wasn't particularly it wasn't a huge cargo vessel. It looked like a baby ship, which they would have been upset with me saying that, but it was a USS Mark, and small crew, ate great, and so I had to wait in Vong Tau for a little while for it to finish out loading up, and then we went out and then went up the river, and each place we went through that we all went, you get on general quarters, it's pretty much every day. It's not like, they blow the sirens and the horns and, general quarters like the old movies. When you get close to anything that's called land, you're on a gun, you're on something, you got your flag jackets on, your helmets and all that, and you're locked and loaded, and you're ready, because and we were alone. We didn't have, the USS Mark didn't have a flotilla out there. I mean, it was just that thing chugging its way up that Song Mekong.
And what'd you do in the Mark?
On the USS Mark, I acted as a signalman, a loner, TAD. I was TAD, temporary assigned duty, until the chief handed me off to the officer of the deck on Spike 30. So I did signal duties, which is usually the smaller vessels. You'll do navigation. They almost always had a radio operator, but not always. And on that one, I don't recall. I think I did the radio or the navigation, but there's shore and there's shore. What you got to do is follow charts of rivers that keep moving. So there's times that you're blowing mud. So you kind of roughly stay as much as you can in the middle. But that's where they float the mines down. They float, they call them IEDs now. Well, they've been around a long, long time, and they just didn't call them that at the time. They would, for the Navy, they floated bombs that didn't explode, where the B-52s would drop bombs. They would hand carry those suckers through the jungle, and get them out into the rivers, and put charges to them, and blow them up as you came across them. That happened a lot, an awful lot. But they did the same things up in the I-Corps and 2-Corps, they would bury bombs. So IED is only a new name. It is not a new device. But we'd get up the river, and they'd say, okay, now really watch out, because we're getting ready to come through the bottleneck. And I said, what's the bottleneck? And they said, you'll see. Just stay on your toes. So, because I think the bottleneck was the first one. It's hard to remember now. The first one where everybody was really tense, because they would often take fire, RPGs, a lot of AK fire, a lot of machine gun fire. So and that day we didn't do anything, but it was clear that everybody was really tense. So at this point, I'd already been up north, so I was a whole lot tenser than I was that little Iowa boy that started, because now I really met real people, and I've been on places where it's just not pleasant, and we've hauled bodies now. So now this whole experience was totally. I was a changed individual. I was 3-pack a day smoke guy. I put a fair share away of alcohol by this time. You drank a lot of beer because the water was so bad, even though you went through distillers and stuff like that. And that's one of the things we did aboard ours is we distilled water. We chemically it was fine, but it just all tasted chemical, and a lot of the guys just hated it. But it was safe. Certainly, it was safe to drink. So you drink beer. We never ran out of beer. The military, Pabst Blue Ribbon, gee whiz, Pabst Blue Ribbon and Bud. There was none of this Bud Light stuff. It was Budweiser, or it was Pabst, or Milwaukee, or something. That and mail were the things that would come no matter what. We had a helicopter go down in Da Nang, a UCH-47, that took fire coming over Sniper Island, Sniper Point, flying low, trying to get out to us. That's the Chinook helicopter, and they transported a lot of stuff. Well, our group happened to be just off the Da Nang Harbor. We were all spread out. The LPH was out there, and the tin cans were there, and we were waiting to receive some stuff by helicopter out of Da Nang. So rather than move out, we were offshore. We were off their range. So they sent several UCH-47s out. Some of them went to the LPH, the helicopter carrier, and a couple were coming to us. And the one that was coming to us had the movies, which the big 16-reel movies, and 16mm movies, and the mail, and a couple other packages, but it wasn't troops. It was just stuff full of that stuff. Well, it took fire coming out of Da Nang Harbor from Sniper Island, Sniper Point, and it shot out one of their engines, and they were losing transmission fluid. Well, a helicopter and losing engines, it's going to come down.
Yes.
Yeah, depends how fast, but it's going to come down. It's either a rock, or they get into auto rotate as best they could. Well, this guy, and I mean, we're from here to downtown, and we come in because he's radioing the pilots. So, we've been hit, we're losing power rapidly. I've got to get down. Well, what he did is there's not a place to land there, and he couldn't make it back to land. So he's got one engine running, just full tilt, going like crazy, and he looks like a ladybug. Other than it was so serious, but it was because the crew guy, the chief, the gunner, he was throwing all these bags of mail out, and the movies and all that stuff. It's all going out this thing like crazy. And he, of course, the UCHs, they have those sponsons on the side for the rear gear come up in. Well, that kind of kept him buoyant as long as he kept the RPMs of the rotor. And it looked just like a little ladybug or June bug on the top. It was just, he couldn't control it very much, but it was just going around. So the ships were coming in, and we were putting lifeboats over the side, because sometime he's going to shut down. So the Peter pilot jumps out. They're the secondary pilot in those things. He's out the window. The captain or the pilot gives him orders to get out because he still had a stable. And then when it was totally empty, then the gunner and crew chief, he comes out. And man, they're swimming away. But we got boats. They didn't have to swim very far. They have their life gear on. So they were right there. And that, I think a piece of that was caught and is on YouTube someplace. Well, we were the closest ship to it, but you didn't want to get too close because those rotor blades become missiles, and they're pretty unforgiving. So as soon as he rolled one way or the other, those babies hit the water, they come apart.
Yes.
And nobody wanted to be the closest boat to him. And we all got down too, because those things will go a long ways. So we knew at some point, the pilot says, okay, I'm going to shut down. He says, and I don't know which way I'm going to go out. But he had his straps off, and both front doors were open. And he said, whichever way it goes over, I'm going out the other way. Well, those cockpits are pretty confined. It's not like it's all open there. So if it goes down one way, and he's got to climb across, of course, he did it in a hurry, and he had to climb across, because it just rolled like slow motion, just rolled over, which really was good for the pilot. It gave him time, because he still had power on that sucker. And then he came out the top and jumped over and swam like crazy. And one of the lifeboats off the LPH got to him. They really did come in there. It wasn't very safe, but they came in, because, I mean, there was rotor blades, man, and it sunk like a brick, man. As soon as it came over, the doors were all open. So there's one just off the harbor, and they're in very deep water. But anyway, we would, going up, so I got to see real stuff even up there. So by the time I retrained and saw that stuff, that the damage that things can do, you don't pick up anything out there. I'm sure they told you, guys, Marines and Army guys both were getting their hands blown off with shrapnel in the leg, because they would pick up a souvenir, stupid, you know, and it was tripped. I mean, it was meant to do damage. And they learned early on it was better not to kill you, but to wound you, because it took so many people to take care of you. So they didn't mind killing you, but they had a great successful day if they could just wound a bunch of people. So they were really good at shrapnel and stuff, punchy pigs, all that. But going up the river, we got up there and we got through the bottleneck, we got through the bottleneck, and then we got Rocket Alley. And, well, by that time I figured I know exactly what we're talking about. Apparently this is known for a lot of RPGs coming out.
Is this on Mekong River?
Yes, it's on Mekong.
Okay.
And but we're getting closer. We're about half the way now to the Dong Tam, and we're just chugging along. I mean, you know, man, we're about as easy as target as you can get, because the river is not. In some places it's really wide. It's over a click wide, but most of it is a little over a football field. So it's not like, you know, it's not like a Rocket 22 could ping that, you know, bounce off that boat, that ship. But we finally got up there, and they weren't in Dong Tam. They were just upriver a little bit at Dong Tam, and so we got up there, and they offloaded me, and I took on that assignment. And that assignment is when I was the only signalman on board. They didn't have a signalman at all.
This is on the USS Mark.
No, I got off. I was
Okay.
totally changed now from the USS Mark, which I had TAD, Trevor assigned duty to. I was now handed over as I took my orders and handed them to the officer deck, which was a petty officer of some kind. I don't
And
know.
what ship you on then?
Now I'm on the Spike 30.
What is the Spike 30?
Spike 30 is a radio call. That was our radio call. There is a name for the Spike 30, but it's Spike 30 that's embedded in my brain. And if I go up online, I actually found it when I looked up when it was built and how it was disposed of and all of that.
Now, you went from the Mark to,
Spike 30.
is that the name of the ship?
That's the name. That is the name of that.
Okay.
That is what I spent my time.
Now, what time is tell me again what time of ship this is?
That's an APL. It's auxiliary personnel living. It's a floating barge. It's 2 decks. It has generators on it. It has desalination equipment on it. It has the whole forward end of that thing is berthing, and the aft end, past halfway is cooking, and the very aft end is where the generators are at, and the desalinating and water purification is at. Now, this is not spike through zero, because spike through zero, where this has got canvas covered over the top of it, this would have carried storages. All of these were converted to a flight deck on the fantail there. Even while I was there, I didn't see one of these that had anything but a flight deck on there. Okay. And this one that
these were always towed?
Always towed, yeah, okay. Always towed. That's why I call him the target. Yeah, if this guy didn't break away with the tow strap, he was always tied up along the starboard side, and he always had the line, well, we call them line because you'd call it rope, but it's in the Navy, they're line. Yes. And they're hawsers, which means it's 3 or 4 inches or larger, and it was always tied off to the bow, and it looped back down on the passageway, on the exterior walkway, and then coiled there so he could cut away, so that barge could cut away, and the crew, there always had to be 2 on that tug. Yeah. At all times. I mean, they could walk around messing around I mean, it's where you're going to go. But on that tug, there had to be 2 on there at all times, and it was the chief petty officer that was the captain of that thing, and they had they had a couple engineers, a gunner's mate. I think they only had 4. I don't remember who the other guy was, but they were just like our family because they were tied up alongside. Every time we moved, they took the dogs off the cleats and they broke away and they pulled out ahead, and that hawser unfurled and it got out there where it is, and they headed out. They had whatever orders we had. We were in constant radio contact, and I wasn't the radio. We had 3 radiomen aboard ours. Had a lot of radio traffic because you had to coordinate helicopter traffic to the guys for these. These guys were out doing patrols, so you couldn't. They didn't have a lot of time to have, just conversation. They were usually pretty busy. So if they needed fuel or they needed ammo or they needed food supplies or whatever. Because these guys are the guys that were carrying the Army down south in 4 Corps.
Now, what's the name of these ships again?
Those are tango boats.
Tango boats.
Which was a converted...
Higgins boat.
Higgins, yeah, LCM-6, yeah. Okay. And that's Higgins boat, yeah. And they had a lot of heavy armor plating. They had a lot of exterior flotation gear because otherwise they'd have sunk. Because you put all that armor plating on there, and then so they had flotation. Then they had a lot of the chicken plating on the side of that. To try to help keep small arm fire from him, and then they stuffed all their supplies, all their sea rats and stuff. But we were still getting out there. We ate pretty good, although I lost 10 pounds. I went in an active duty at 185, and while I was over there, I lost 10 pounds. I came back 175, but I didn't starve at all. But there was usually about, as I recall, about 16 boats to a flotilla, as I recall. Most of them were these transport boats, tango boats, because they held the troops. And they would put them ashore with their ramps. I mean, they'd stuff them right into the riverbanks, dropping the guys that come out. The helicopter decks on those, he couldn't shut down. He couldn't put a full weight of a helicopter down on that thing. That just gave him a target to get on and take off wounded. And then they would either bring them over to us, or if they were close enough to Dong Tam or Da Nang or something, they would move them on.
Now, the tango boats, where were they based? Were they with a larger ship? Or
they were with us.
They were with you?
That's right. Okay. All those river divisions were with us. Okay. They moved when we moved, or we moved when they moved.
Okay.
So wherever we were, one of the flotillas was with us.
How many in the flotilla?
About 16, as I recall. Okay. There was 2 alpha boats, and I don't have the pictures.
Would this be the alpha boat?
No. The alpha boat was with the family of tango boats, and the alpha boat was a boat that was faster. It's actually faster than the PBR, but the PBR boys, they never admitted that. Hey Google, a Vietnam Alpha boat.
According to Wikipedia, the Vietnamese alphabet is the modern writing
alpha.
system for the Vietnamese language.
Alpha boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, they were really slick. They were really low, all aluminum. They were special made. And they weren't designed to be troop carriers. They were firepower. They had a nose gun, but not big. They were meant to be fast.
Okay.
And they drug chains out ahead of all of our flotilla was 2 Alpha boats out in front. And they drug chains between them. And the idea was to try to break loose any mines that were floating in or blow them up in any way they needed to. And they did their job. They had twin V8s in them, and when they got up on plane, those little puppies could really go. Now the PBRs are fast right out of the hole, and they could do things with it. But they had jet, they had twin V8s, and they had jet propulsion in theirs. The Alpha boats, everything we had props, propellers.
Okay.
The PBRs were very good. They always traveled in at least pairs, and we had them they would come up, but they weren't assigned to us. They would be in and out of bases.
Okay. And these were always river boats.
Always river boats.
Okay.
That's right. They were a river boat.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
And the flotilla, you were just taking supplies up, or what?
We didn't go back anywhere.
Okay.
We were stationed in the river with whatever Riveron division was assigned to us, whichever one it was. And we had 151, Riveron 151 with us alongside of us for a while. 191 was assigned to us for a while. And at the end of the flotillas, the Navy, U.S. Navy flotillas, was right around, I want to say, maybe February, March of 1969. They started somewhere in there, they started giving the whole flotillas to the South Vietnamese Navy.
So what was the object of the flotilla? What did you do?
They carried and transported troops in the Mekong Delta, up and down the canals. And you had to catch it. Some of them had to catch it at high tide, because at low tide they'd be waiting there till morning. And they would go out and do special operations. They would carry sniper groups or Army Special Forces down there, Rangers and things. And there was times we had some aboard that they didn't talk to you. They had, at that time, some really high-tech technology, which today is, you and I can go down and buy better stuff than they had. They had starlight scopes that were, they were enormous, had a huge battery pack. And they were just almost dwarfed the rifle on the top of it. I mean, just amazing. But the guns were M1s, M14s that were completely rebuilt by an armor specialist. Everything was milled, everything. There was nothing rough about the action on those things. They were true sniper rifles in its day. Today, you and I can go buy rifles at that level and just buy them off the shelf. But in those days, but the guys didn't talk to you. They were really quiet. They were real quiet. They just didn't talk. They didn't talk to crew. They'd sit on the front of the boats. They'd go out. They had their orders. We had their orders. The boat coxswain had the orders. And generally, it wasn't the whole flotilla. It may just be one. It may be just a couple. And they'd go out and they would drop them off at some coordinate and back away, and as quiet as they could, move on downriver. And they were likely, we weren't the group that picked them up. They would be out who knows how long and search and destroy or something, or just reconnaissance or something, but they would show up someplace else, and some other boat or helicopter would pick them up who knows where. That's how they operated. it was a real cat and mouse game. Some of the guys had loss, and brothers or family or close friends, which a lot of them had close friends lost, and some of them just totally just come apart. They totally, or they became real dangerous because all they wanted to do is kill, and it didn't make any difference what. So we get to see some of that on the top of our boat when we stationed. We were quite often stationed because we put supplies. We would get a lot of our supplies brought out to us from Dong Tam. They would fly them into that strip that's there. Now this airstrip, that's a C-123. Do you remember the C-123s?
Yes.
I loved them. I wish I could own one. But I can't. I flew in and out of there in either C-123s when I'd go to Saigon for something, or helicopters, one of the two. But man, I love those C-123s. They were unbelievable. Did you ever ride in a 123?
Oh, yes.
Oh man, isn't they something? Just impressive.
Is that the Caribou?
That's the Caribou.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The 130 that's still still around, is simply the steroid version of the 123. 123 is just an amazing, boy, if you wanted a short field, what's it called, stall aircraft, short field takeoff. I remember that they would get, that was all tarmac in there. The Seabees build that for them, and they put down those metal tarmacs there, and you'd swear, you'd stand at the end of this and go, ain't no way we're going to get off, much less loaded. And well, we did several times, and they would put the power to those engines to where when the tires started skidding on that metal rack, that's when they'd let go, and that butt went down and that nose came up, and all of a sudden you're just.
We had some Caribous in the Army, and the Air Force demanded that we give them up because that's an airplane.
Well, we had Army. There was Army. We supported the airboats. There was airboats down there. Now we had our hovercraft, and that was Navy. But the Army picked up some of those too. There was some Army down in the rice paddies and stuff that had them, but they started out Navy, all Navy. I don't know when they made a switch or if they did, but the Army had some. And the Army had a lot of, and down out of Dong Tam, they had a lot of airboats. And they had a 6-cylinder Continental aircraft engine in them, and they were fiberglass. And boy, you talk about a gator getter. They would always run in twos, just like the PBRs. The whole point of the two is one would run close to shore or up on shore. He'd splash. If that lead airboat splashed the shore for some reason, number two would come in and ride that wet ground. If they took fire, they would do it that way. The idea was to get the first guy to start taking fire, and the second boat behind him would just pour it to it, usually with 50 caliber or with twin M60s. And I mean, it was those guys were just nuts. And when they asked for ground support, when these guys asked for ground support, I'm not talking down the Air Force at all, because you never knew who was flying that day or what sortie was up overhead. So when they called for close support and they were caught back in a channel or canal or something, which happened a lot, they'd ask for ground support. And we'd hear all this traffic on the radio. I was sitting up there on the deck with that one picture you got there. The Radio Shack is right inside, and that's my flight suit, is that yellow shirt. I was doing flight duty that day, being the LSO. You land the helicopters.
Now, this is on what ship?
That's on Spike 30, Spike 30.
Oh, Spike 30.
Yeah, that's my office right there. From there to the forward part of that deck, that's where I have my signal flags. I know it looks like I'm lounging in the Bahamas, but that's actually the shirt that I wear when I would go up the ladder to the corner of the flight deck, and I'd land helicopters into helicopter landing motions, because you had to center them. I mean, they didn't have a lot of space. Here they'd never put down. The pilot would watch through the nose where that cross is, and they either had to climb up over the skids or not, because he couldn't set it all the way down. But I had enough space to set. I could set two. I could set a Huey, or a gunship, or a Cheyenne, and a Loach, what's called a light observation helicopter. Those little high turbine things. I could set two of those if they were really good pilots. That's how much space I had on our deck. But I would be up there unless I got called off for some reason. If I was doing helicopter, if we were having movement for some reason, some action coming on, that was my flight shirt that I would have up there.
How long are you up and down the Mekong River?
We were on station for probably 8 months, 9 months. The last, and we were the last group to be given to the South Vietnamese Navy. And what was ironic is most of our flotilla, most of the guys, now remember, all of us were assigned NSA Saigon. Everybody out here was NSA Saigon, det something, whatever that was. But it all looked like you were all in a hotel in Saigon. That's not true. But most of the guys on Spike 30, as well as myself, most of those guys got early outs. And I'm thinking, man, all right, I'll take my early out. I wasn't re-enlisted. I've already been there 2 tours now, so I don't need to stay anymore. I had a really bad attitude by that time. Ears were shot. The smoking was horrible. The drinking was terrible. And but when I got to Saigon, my orders said I was to stay in Saigon. I got orders just like the rest of them to go to Saigon. And the Navy in 3 Corps and 4 Corps always went through what's called the Annapolis BEBOQ, or the Annapolis Hotel. That was a facility about 5 clicks from Townsend Air Base, halfway to downtown Saigon. That was an old French hotel. At 12-foot ceilings, all concrete or marble, and it was just like an echo chamber everywhere. Well, we were right in the corner. I don't remember that little side street, but it was along a main thoroughfare there, and I'm having a hard time remembering the name of that thoroughfare. And I was assigned to shore patrol duty, so I didn't get an early out. I just got a shore patrol badge. I got a different gun assigned. I had a nightstick and handcuffs, and so I became a. And now I wasn't the kind of shore patrol that went out on the town. 2 blocks away was an NCO club, and man, there was fights down there all the time. One Marine blew his own brains out with his .45 right there in the club. We got called down there to that. There was fights on those. But what we did is I had cells on the 2nd floor of the Annapolis BEBOQ. That's berthing, officer berthing, and enlisted berthing. But I never had any officers. The highest I ever had was a chief. This was April, or this was July 10th. Oh, and my term is our present that I was given from Agent Orange.
Yeah.
But this was July 10th, 1969, and I was I don't to say I was the senior petty officer in charge. I was the guy that was on duty that night at the hotel, and all enlisted personnel coming into South Vietnam through Saigon came through the Annapolis Hotel. That's just the way it was. They checked in there.
Now,
they got
is this
their
at the Annapolis?
This is the Annapolis, yeah.
Okay.
We got bombed. And I was the senior petty officer in charge that night, and we were bombed at 7 o'clock. Now the reason I know it was 7 o'clock on that night is because I started the movies. I ran the night flicks for the guy, because remember, this whole place is full of 2 floors of guys either coming in country or leaving country. They were coming into Thompson Air Base. Navy personnel came here in country and out of country. They came through the Annapolis. And so we had the personnel during the day to handle the orders and all that jazz. But at 7 o'clock, right above, this is the corner. Right here is our outside guard post. The doorway is right here. It took the door out. And we had 2 guys in there. I had 2 guys on duty. One of them is a new guy.
Now, where's the guard post?
The guard post is right inside this brick and sandbags.
Okay.
And I always assign, just like the rest of the guys, you assign a new guy in country, you give him a gun and a helmet, and you put him out there with a guy that's on his way out, that's been in country for a while. So there's always 2 guys out there, and the entrance is off this side street, and this is the front door, in and out, and everything else is got chicken plating up and all that. Well, Viet Cong was in a little 3-wheel cart and had claymores. It turns out he had 2 claymores in the front basket, where you sat in the front of a 3-wheeler.
Yes.
And he drove it in there. Now online it says that this the guy, the terrorist, was killed in the explosion. That's full of crap. That is absolutely not true. What the guys did, the guy that had been in the country, he told the other guy to get down because he just knew something was bad, because the cart drove in right next to him, right there, and we're just off the main street. Main street is right here. It's just right there. A stupid place to put this hotel, or for us to take over. But he yelled at him to get down because he didn't know what was going to happen, but he'd been in country long enough, he knew it wasn't going to be good. And so they just both got down, which was good for them. And not before he saw the guy jump off, and that was what keyed him. He jumped off this cart and got on the back of another little scooter. There's 9 billion scooters over there. And the street has got people from curb to curb. You couldn't find the center line, if you had it flagged. There are millions of people on those streets. And this is one of the main streets. And he was in the crowd and gone. So the report that's online about this incident is not accurate in that context. That guy did not die in that. He got off, got on his buddies, and then it went, and he was down the road. Now there was a lot of deaths in the street.
How did he set the claymores off?
I don't know how to set them off. Some little Mickey Mouse 20-cent timer.
Yeah.
I mean, it had taken nothing. Where I got most of my PTSD was from this.
Yeah.
Because at 7 o'clock, it was business as usual. The 7 o'clock movie, and all the guys would be pissed off if you didn't have that movie going at 7 o'clock. And all I was doing was looking for another long night on duty, on watch there, babysitting these 2 floors of guys either coming in or going out. The guys had been there a long time, and the new guys both, they were out on the bars getting drunk and coming back in drunk, and I was having to keep them quiet or lock them up. So we had several cells back in behind us. So we were in the upstairs main empty corridor. I don't know what it looked like back in his hotel days, but like I said, everything was either marble or concrete. The stairway to come off the right inside that door was hugely. It would have been clear over. It had been clear over to here. Was the width of this whole space all the way to the back of the building where we had our armory, was in the very back of that hallway. This spot right inside that door was the Navy Geedunk. And a Geedunk is where they sold concessions, pop and gum and cigarettes and stuff, right inside the door. And that was a split door, it was a Dutch, kind of a Dutch door. One of the young guys that died had just got in country. He was a Hispanic kid. And he just got in country, and he was right at the door when it went off. And it just killed. We lost all the power, and it blew every one of us in that upstairs. All this stuff you see on the side of that building, that's shrapnel. A claymore is not an explosive as an explosive. Claymore is anti-personnel.
Yes.
And there was 2 of them in there, and that's what it was designed to do, and it did a heck of a job. Now, there was a few guys that got wounded on the second floor because that's where the screen was at. The screen was right behind those upper windows right there. And then I was clearing the back, running the projector, and I had just turned it on. And what I remember about that is that huge flash coming through there, the screen coming down, and all of us going backwards. The movie camera, me, lights starting to flash, smoke, debris, and then you start hearing screaming. Crying, screaming, lights are out. I don't have a flashlight with me. I had to find a Navy light hanging. There's lights hanging all over. We didn't have emergency lights, I remember, because it was out. The armory was right. Now, my first thought on that one was, the very first thing I could think of, besides all the bad words, oh shit, because I could hear screaming and yelling. I could hear guys yelling for guns. They wanted guns. And I'm trying to figure out what day of the week it is and what planet I'm on. And my first thought at that point was, it's another Ted. You know, because I was thinking it was a mortar. I didn't even give it a thought. It was a land-based something. I thought it was a mortar. So I was anticipating, my thought was, there's going to be either more mortars or they're going to try to overrun us. And I had a whole building full of half new guys and half old guys and no weapons out. I had 2 guys down on the gate. I didn't know if they were dead. I didn't know how close it got to them. And I had 3 guys on the roof, all new guys. I had watches on the roof. The corner guy right above this corner had an M60. The other 2 guys had M16s. I hated them freaking M16s at that time. And by that time, I was getting up and dust everywhere, and you could hear that shrapnel ricocheting off all that concrete. I didn't get a scratch. Most of the guys upstairs didn't get a scratch because it all went up and ricocheted back. A couple of them right up front got some. And the guys that had been around a while, they come pouring out of that upstairs, because that was the door right above the stairs, is the doorway back into the sleeping areas, which was just a huge open bunk area. There's bunks everywhere. And a lot of the second and first class, a lot of the guys that had been in the rivers came out, and they were demanding guns. Everybody was demanding freaking guns. I'm thinking it's a mortar, or we're going to get attacked, or both. I didn't know. So I went right down the stairs as fast as I could, and those guys are all behind me, because I'm the leading petty officer at the time, and pounded on that door right at the bottom of the stairs, this big armored door, a lot like it was a bank vault. And the gunner that was in charge, he slept in the room, this on-duty gunner. He didn't want to give any of the guns out, because he had been authorized. We used all kinds of language to him because we could yell at him. He was inside. And it was all dark back behind us. Some of the guys were finding flashlights and bringing flashlights. And all I could see behind me to the street was, I could see the street lights. I could see people all over the floor. I didn't know if they were all dead. I didn't know they were wounded. A lot of activity going there. So I'm yelling for some guys to give them render first aid, find the guys. And we use language to convince the gunner that he really ought to open the door, or he's going to be the next one to die. and then we'll get the guns out. Well, as soon as he opened the door, we passed out a couple 60s right away to the couple first class. I remember that because they don't know how to use them, they don't know how to load them, so they gave them a box of ammo. And I said, go to the roof. Let's go. So they were going up the roof, and they were taking some of their own guys with them. It was perfect. They knew each other. It's the way to go. And then we wanted to get the front reinforced, but I knew what a crappy design this was. I knew there's just, I don't know what's left out there, but I wanted to get some guys out there and around the corner in case something was going to happen, and try to get some guys in some of these windows with 16s. So I didn't give the guns that I knew of. I didn't have time to assign guns. I asked the gunner to give them to people that have been in country, and as far as I know, we did that. But we got guys at the roof, and I was stepping over bodies to get to the front because I needed to get out front to see where we were at. All I had is my 38 at the time, 38 shoulder holster. I didn't have a draw, no point at that time. And I get out there and I see that our guard post is still intact. And that's when I begin to see the other damage. So it was all shrapnel damage. The guys in the front, of course, right here, took the blast. The guys that were gathering around there smoking and talking, they took the brunt of the blast and shrapnel. And I tried to run down over the years because that has been my worst nightmares. I don't remember how many died. What we did is I finally got somebody to get through to command and send local police support, and that was a horrible thing, but you had to have it because it was a mess out in the streets, and so they sent the white mice, and those guys were bastards.
The white mice.
White mice. They were the bad boy police. They all wore blue shirts, white police kind of hats, and they had white gauntlet gloves, and they called them the white mice. And if they thought you were guilty of something, they'd shoot you with their 38 or 45 and throw the body in the back of their, usually a little Weps carrier that they had. Ran all around all the time, white mice. There was never any discussion, and I watched that happen a couple times over there. If somebody got caught for stealing, or if they thought somebody was caught for stealing, or if somebody was doing anything wrong, one of them would just take a gun out, they'd grab that body and sling it like a sack of potatoes up in the back of a Weps carrier. Away they go with their sirens and light running. So, but I needed a lot of stuff. I didn't know how many we had, so I told them to send ambulances and send backup support. Get us some support here. And
When did that happen?
that happened at 7 o'clock on July 10th, 1969.
Yeah.
And the reason 7 o'clock sticks so well in my mind because I started it every night at 7 o'clock. Every night that I was on duty. And those guys had a fit if you didn't start the movie at 7 o'clock. But all I remember much after that, trying to get lights going. Lights never did come on while I was still there. Was to start getting the guys that knew more first aid. There was a couple Navy corpsmen there. Trying to get lights to them and triage the wounded and get that separated. And the only reason I knew so much about the Hispanic young kid that just got in country, I'd met him the day before, brand new in country, and he was in the way. His body was actually in the way because the doors were so tight right there. And I recognized him, and that really pissed me off. But I didn't know how many people were just wounded or dead, and I could never find that out because the lieutenant that showed up that was over the Annapolis, I had never seen him before. He'd never been around. He never was around or showed up. But all of a sudden he shows up quite a bit after. The MPs were there. We had several MPs there and helped start setting a perimeter up around because nothing else happened. But we didn't know that at the time. So the Army did a great job sending pretty good support right away. And then the white mice, man, they were everywhere. Yeah, out in the street. But they had their own mess. And finally the old man showed up, a young guy. I don't know if he was much older than me, but he's a college grad, stuff like all the brown shoes. And the only thing he said to me is, "How come you didn't call me sooner?" And there were some words I used on him that I was busy. I know that conversation is going to go good. And he told me to go home. He told me he's got it. So he gave me direct orders to go back to my hotel. So I did. And the next 2 or 3 days I drank. I drank a lot. And we had a really good chief petty officer that was over the shore patrol. I don't remember his name either. But he sent some of the guys that I knew in the shore patrol. He sent them after me one day, picked me up, brought me back, put me in a cell, took my gun, my nightstick. Otherwise, he left all my clothes on. Yeah, threw me in a cell. He said, "When you're awake," and he told me this later, he said, "When you're awake, we'll have a talk." I mean, he could have really arrested me. I mean, it could have gone court-martial. I mean, it could have gone so bad. But after that incident, I wasn't very good. I did a lot of drinking after that. Not on duty, but.
How long you in Vietnam?
How long was I there? Exactly 2 years. Not to the day, but 24 months.
Tell me about coming home.
Coming home, I didn't have exact orders when I was supposed to leave. I was just told to get my stuff ready. So I had packed up everything in the hotel, and it was a downtown hotel. Some room 17, something, I don't remember, 17 was the last two numbers. I still have the key somewhere, I don't remember where it's at. But I sent everything there home, which wasn't a lot. And so all I had with me was my AWOL bag and a couple things, change of clothes. But I didn't have any of my dress stuff, none of my dress. Well, somewhere that had gotten lost, I can't remember now, and I never had it replaced. So when my orders came in, it came in with a couple Air Force guys, Air Police, APs, that were on their way to Tonsanut and were given orders to stop by and pick up this guy named Harper and take him with them. So I was on duty. And they came in and came upstairs to the back to the office, Shore Patrol office, and said, "You got a Harper here?" I said, "Yeah," and it was me, and I was sitting in there. And he said, "You got to come with us. Your flight's on the tarmac at Tonsanut." So I said, "Right now?" He said, "Right now." So I gave my badge, and I still had my Shore Patrol amulet. I still have that at the house. Someplace I was going to bring that and show you, but I don't know where it's at. But I've had it. I had it in my office at work for years. Had it hanging up. So I still have that. But gave my Shore Patrol hard helmet, and my 38, still have my holster on, but gave him the 38, nightstick, handcuffs, gave him that strap. And they had my orders. I don't know where they got them, because usually we cut orders down in the personnel office. But they had my orders and everything. So shook the chief's hand, and he was there, and a couple of guys were there, and I went right straight down, got in their Jeep, blasted off with a siren going all the way to Tonsanut, about 5 miles away, 5 clicks. And sure enough, there was a 130 out there, had the engines running, and they were loading stuff up in the back, and several guys were loading it. Most of them were in dress uniforms, and I'm in my greens. And so we flew to Okinawa. From Okinawa, we didn't set in Okinawa hardly any time at all. We got meal bags, meal boxes, typical brown box. And the not so pretty stewardess guy handed us to those in our cargo nets to eat. And we changed planes. All the guys that were on that plane got in a C-141. You remember the C-141?
Oh, yes.
Big, at that time it was the big boy. And we got in there, but there was a few supplies in there, but it was mostly guys. Net, cargo net seats everywhere. And we took off, and they handed out more brown boxes. And I asked if, after a couple hours out over the ocean, I asked him, would it be, is there a spare seat up in the cockpit that I could go up and sit? 'Cause still love flying. I flew a lot, fairly often with the helicopter guys. I'd take off and he just did burn gas, fly up and down the river a little bit. So I loved that. But he went up and asked one of the captains there, because they changed over, because they were generally reserves that made those jump flights. That's where they picked up their reserve time, was flying back and forth. And he said, yeah, I come up there, because the engineer was tired of sitting in the engineer seat, which was right behind the controls. The two pilots in the engineer seat. So I got to sit in the engineer seat, because, yeah, the engineer was taking a nap. All the way back to where they said, you want to call home, as we were getting towards the coast. And I said, you want to call home? And I said, yeah, I don't, I couldn't think of what kind of time it was or anything, because we flew all night. We were up all night. And I said, well, yeah, well, they got a Mars connection. And they called the house and then handed me the headset, and I talked to my dad, and he couldn't believe it was me. I said, I can see the United States of America right now on the horizon. He said, you coming home? I said, yeah. He said, when are you going to be here? And I said, well, I said, I have to figure out catching a flight out of San Francisco, or out of San Francisco, because I flew into Travis Air Force Base, and it was in the early morning. I remember the sunrise just coming over, and you could see the outline of all the Sierra Nevadas, and just that sun, beautiful. I remember that sun, talking to my dad, coming up over that, and thinking of things. I don't know what I was thinking. Just it's over, or something I've done, or something. And we landed. It was daylight by then. I got in a bus with all the other guys, and we went back to Treasure Island. Was his first stop. And he said, "This is where you get out." I said, "I'm not getting out here." He said, well, "Where do you think you're going?" I said, "Where are you going next?" He said, "Well, the International Airport, San Francisco International." I said, "I'll ride with you." He said, "Okay." Bus driver didn't care. I had orders cut to leave the service, or active duty, at Treasure Island. I said, "I started in Great Lakes. I'm going to get out of Great Lakes." Well, my attitude had deteriorated in a lot of ways, and so I'm still in my greens, starting to smell pretty good by now. And he dropped me off. He said, "Hey, good luck." And so I went in the terminal, and I went around checking for flights going to O'Hare. Found one that would give me a standby. At that time, almost any military guy could get they had any kind of orders. I don't remember ever looking at it. If you had a packet full of orders, you get a standby flight. And at that time, I don't know if it still works that way or not, I don't know. But they said, "Yeah, here's," and it's going to leave in a couple hours. And I said, "Yeah, we'll put you on standby for that." So I was still smoking like crazy then, and I went and I sat down with my AWOL bag against my back against one of the walls in one of the hallways, one of the big hallways there at San Francisco International. And it wasn't too long, a couple of shore patrol guys, and they were in their dress uniforms. They came along and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm waiting for my flight. I got a standby flight." He says, "You're not in your dress uniform." I said, "I know that." And he said, "Give me your orders." He said, "You got orders?" I said, "Yeah." So they wanted to make sure I wasn't AWOL or anything. They looked at the orders and said, "You're supposed to have gotten out at Treasure Island." I said, "I'm not getting out at Treasure Island. I'm getting out at Great Lakes, just like I came in." And they looked at each other, and they said, "Well, okay." They said, come with us." So they made me sit in the bathroom. Said, "If we see you outside this bathroom before your flight's called, we're going to arrest you." And I said, "Okay." So I had to sit in the bathroom for the rest of that time till I heard the flight. Got out, got on the flight, and we flew back, and I think it was a 707 at that time. I think it was a 707. And quite a few military guys were in the flight. Of course, they were all in dress uniforms. And I was sitting near the back, which didn't bother me at all. And a couple of military guys were asking the stewardess if we could, because she was starting to serve alcohol on the cart. The little bottles of alcohol, or just drinks, pop and alcohol. and a couple of them started asking, well, can we buy more than just the one? Well, some of us got together and said, asked the stewards, would you go check with the captain and see if we can buy the whole cart? We'll just buy the whole cart and we'll give it out. And she went up and she came back, and the captain came back. And he says, I'll tell you what I'll do. And that's the only positive thing that ever happened with me in uniform during that era. The only thing. He came back, must have been a military guy. He came back and said, if you guys, because it's all guys, there wasn't any gals then at that time. Says, if you guys all sit in the back of the plane, if those passengers are willing to move up, and you all sit in the back of the plane and don't cause any trouble, he said, I'll save the whole car. Of course, we all said, deal. So it's shuffling around, everybody's shuffling around, all the guys, Army, Air Force, Marine guys, couple sailors in dress uniforms. We all sat in the back. Nobody asked me one word about why I was still in greens at the time. And we started working over the cart pretty good. The stewardess really filled up the cart. I don't know how much we paid for it. I'm sure it wasn't. Anyway, we started handing out drinks, the little bottles, up and down the aisle. And they thought, because by now people were singing, and I mean the guys were singing, so I mean it was just, it was the most enjoyable flight I ever had. It was the most positive thing that ever happened during the Vietnam era to me. And of course we started handing them out. I went to the women first, and then we started handing them out to some of the guys. And it was, for that 4-hour flight or so, it was the happiest. I mean, everybody was singing and visiting and talking. I mean, there was not, I don't recall a negative anything. And then we get to O'Hare, and my folks hadn't seen me for 2 years, a little over 2 years. And everybody's walking down that gangway into the terminal. People are lined up on both sides, and I'm the last one off. I walk off with one of the stewardesses, laughing and giggling or something. And my folks and my sister are standing right at the rail as I come by, and I had to smell like a brewery. Now, my dad didn't drink or smoke, neither did Mom, and they hugged me and said, well, we're glad. I must have smelled terrible. Dad had got a van from somebody, borrowed a van from somebody. And all I remember is getting to the van and they told me, Dad said, why don't you go in the back and sleep? Well, I thought that was a really good idea. So I did, and I went home, back to Washington, Illinois, the farmhouse, and I slept, I slept for days.
When did you get your discharge?
Technically, I was a wee bit over the hill. First off, not going to TI, but getting up. My dad finally reminded me after, I don't know, 7 or 8 days, he said, don't you have to check out someplace? And I said, yeah, I do. And, okay. Well, I had to, so I went up to, so I got another standby flight. I did get a dress uniform from someplace. I don't remember where, because I didn't have one. But I got one from someplace, and I went to Great Lakes, and the first thing the officer of the deck said, you're AWOL, sailor, and I said, well, I started here, so I'm gonna end here. So they said, okay. And let me in, and I was there 3 days, and I had to do a captain's mass there for being over the hill, and so he restricted me to the Great Lakes for a couple days. That was it, and I came home and I started doing reserve time.
When did you discharge?
I discharged September 22nd, 1969.
September 22nd, 1969.
Uh-huh.
You said you joined the reserves?
I was in the reserves. Well, yeah, I was already in the reserves, 6 year thing, but I actually have 14 or 15 good years. Yeah. Only 2 of them were active. And I got out at the time that they were cutting back on everything, and I just got really fed up. I should have stayed, but I got out.
When did you come to Bartlesville?
I came to Bartlesville in 1997, in the middle of the year.
Why did you come here?
I did phone business. I was a signalman, so I got a job with the phone company in Illinois, and I was in the phone business for all the time for 42 years. And I came up here. I had a business for myself because I worked for Telex. Telex folded, and then so I went into business for myself as a consultant. They hired me at the hospital to come up. And I came up and I did an evaluation for 3 months, and in 3 months they hired me. They hired me to implement all the things that I had recommended, and I was here for about 20 years until the Ascension acquisition and takeover, and I was the first one they let go.
Would you join the Navy again?
Oh, sure. Sure.
I'd like to do a word association. I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction.
Okay.
The first one is boot camp.
Snow.
USS Thomaston.
Ship.
USS Mark.
Cool ship.
Signalman.
Communications.
Spike 30.
That's me.
Mekong River.
Muddy River. Yeah, you can leave out shit river on that, because that would have come
Annapolis Hotel.
bad.
Vietnam.
The loss of life on both sides.
Ho Chi Minh.
I'd have shot him myself.
Lyndon Johnson.
He'd be in the same category as Ho Chi Minh.
Richard Nixon.
Same category.
Why were we in Vietnam?
I believed that we were there to stop communism in Southeast Asia. That's the verbiage that was thrown out. That's what my dad told me. That's what he believed, and that was right for me.
How do you want to be remembered?
An honest guy that cared for others.
Well, sir, this is an excellent interview.
Well,
I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
I more than appreciate this whole thing made me real nervous because I don't want to imply in any way that I'm anything special. On Veterans Day, I work at Lowe's.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of guys through there, so I wear my hat all the time. I don't wear it because I want to prove something. I wear that because I want to be recognized. And there's been guys that come through there, and we get talking, and there's a lot of guys like me that haven't put things to bed. There's been some guys my age or older that have started crying. And it's not far from the plate, the whole issue.
Anyway,
Yep.
again, I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview. And today is February 26, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Greg Harper in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you.